What's up, PGF Nation? The NFL Combine is in the books. We saw some prospects put on an absolute show and are now climbing draft boards and making scouts go back and watch some more tape. We're going to give you our thoughts on the biggest takeaways from the Combine and what it means for the NFL Draft in April. I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. Alex, I'm going to start with you. Who impressed you the most at the NFL Combine?
Well, I'm going to start with the defensive tackles first, because that's who we started with. So I'm going to start with Lee Hunter from Texas Tech, 6'3", 318 pounds. It wasn't the 40, because the 40, I really, the 40 for the wide receivers, running backs, and DBs, I look at that. But for the 40 for offensive linemen and defensive linemen, I don't really care. I get it, but I don't really care too much about it. Lee Hunter really looked fluid and solid through I guess they call it the W strategy. I'm not sure what they call it, but he really looked smooth and thorough through the W strategy, going around the wraparounds to get to the quarterback. That's what I like to see. That's what I saw from him. That's what I liked a lot from him.
Yeah, I don't think the testing was off the charts, but like you said, not the best numbers, but some of the movement was there. Look, we got to have a conversation about Caleb Banks. This is a guy that we haven't mentioned much on the pod.
The guy I got.
And look, here's a guy that I think probably made himself a first-round lock. And yeah. I think it's buyer beware, Alex, when it comes to Caleb Banks, because he is the typical, or I should say prototypical workout warrior, and the guy that checks all the boxes from the physical attributes that you love. 6'6", 327, runs a great 40 time, just over 5 seconds, 32-inch vertical, which is fantastic for a guy that size, 5-inch wingspan. I mean, all these scouts are looking for this guy. This is the prototypical defensive tackle that you're looking for. Only played 3 games last season. And a guy who, look, when he's on the field, he's flashed at times. I'm sure being a Florida guy, he's flashed, but he disappears a lot. His tape is really inconsistent. I don't trust his motor. I don't trust the effort. There's some off the field / locker room concerns that I keep hearing about this guy as well. And everything about him just screams inconsistent. Even what we saw at the Senior Bowl, Alex, he had some moments at the Senior Bowl where he looked good. And then he had other moments where he kind of disappears. At the Combine, we knew he was going to put on a show because physically the guy is a specimen. He's going to creep into round one. He's going to be a round one guy, and I'm telling you, buyer beware with Caleb Banks.
And then you have to also worry about, is he just a first and second down player as opposed to a 3-down player? And the 3rd down is when you need those players the most. Now, I don't want to say comparisons, but there's a lot of tape that says he could be Jordan Davis. He kind of worked out where he was able to get I think he was on the field for about 78% of the plays, where he was always previously about between 50 and 60, maybe 65% the most. So now he showed that he can do that. Now, Caleb, you could put that on Caleb, but the problem is there's not enough tape in college to say that he can do that, because he only played 3 games this past year. So what are we really getting? This is a guy that should not technically go in the first round. He should more than likely go in maybe the second.
Physically speaking, he should be a 3-down guy.
Right.
There's no reason he should not be a disruptive pass rusher, but you're right. He's so inconsistent on tape. You don't know what version of him you're going to get.
The next guy I have, and this is my last defensive lineman, is Zane Durant out of Penn State. Now, he's a shorter guy. He's not 6'3", he's not 6'4". He is 6'1". They'll say 6'1.5". We'll just call it 6'1", 290 pounds. Quick, fast. His physique is quite – he's more Aaron Donald. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about his body build. We're not talking about the actual play. We're talking about his body build. His body build is Aaron Donald, where he doesn't look fat. He's just he's like a brick. He's just simply like a brick. He hits hard and he's solid every single down, and he can be on we were talking about 3 downs. This is a guy that can be on the field for 3 downs. This is a guy that's going to be solid. I don't know if he's going to be Aaron Donald or if he's going to be maybe Bubba McDowell. I'm just saying, I don't know where he's going to be, but this is a guy that's going to start for a team for the next 10 years. He may or may not get a Pro Bowl, but this is a guy that's going to be a starter for 10 years on anybody's team.
Yeah, no, he was a guy on my list too. Fastest defensive tackle in this group, tested really good, 1.66 10-yard split is outstanding for a big man like this. 33.5-inch vertical. This is an explosive player, and it showed at the combine. It really showed. This guy's an explosive player, a guy who's a penetrating defensive lineman who can be really disruptive. One last guy I want to mention, Alex, DeMonte Capehart. I thought he had a really nice showing. Athletic, big man, 6'4", 313, ran a 4.85 40. I think he's a guy who's a little bit scheme versatile, could play in a couple different fronts. So it's definitely some guys to watch there up front. Look, I want to jump. We're going to jump around here, but I want to talk about a guy here that put on a show, Alex. And look, it's a name that we all know and that we all knew about coming into it, and he's high on just about everybody's list. Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame put on an absolute show. And there's a couple things I want to talk about here, because I don't think it was shocking that he tested really well. I think we knew that he's one of the best athletes in this class. I think most people thought he's one of the best prospects, regardless of position in this class. But here's the thing. He was a lock to be RB1, right? We knew he was RB1 going into this. We knew he was a top 10 pick going into the combine. A guy like this didn't have to test. He didn't have to go out and test. He didn't have to go run the 40 or do any of these tests. We all knew he was RB1. He had nothing to prove. I loved the competitiveness this guy showed by showing up at the combine and saying, yeah, I'm going to do all the drills, and I'm going to run the 40, and I'm going to show you guys how good I really am, and comes out and puts on a show, 4.36 in the 40. I knew he was fast, Alex. I thought he was a 4.4 guy. 4.36. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. The way this guy moves too. I mean, scouts already loved this guy. The burst, the balance, the jump cuts. But man, he showed it off at the combine. And here's the thing. Like we said, I think he was a lock to go top 10. I don't think he gets out of the top 5.
I knew it.
Alex, I don't think he does. Is it crazy? I mean, is he gonna get out of the top 5 with this combine?
So it's not the combine, it's the draft, right? There's not a lot of people that jump out at you. We're looking for the people that are going to jump out at you. Now, Fernando Mendoza, we'll take that and we'll say, okay, that's a quarterback. He looked good, so we'll take that. Then after that, we've been going from David Bailey to Arvell Reese, and now Cornell Tate is up in the top 5. Now Jeremiah Love is up in the top 5. I think it's because you don't have a compact list of your top 5 to 10 players. Yeah, top 5 to 10 players that says you blue could chip. Put him outside. Yeah, the blue chip guys. Yeah. So like if this was oh God, what's my guy from Detroit? Trayvon Walker and my guy from Detroit, the defensive end. I can't.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Hey, thank you, Aiden Hutchinson draft. I don't think he's a top 5 pick, because in that draft there were a lot. There's Drake London. There were a lot of players. He would not have been top 5, but because of this draft, yes, he can possibly be a top 5 pick. Now, we don't have to get into it right now, but for me, for running backs, I'm not taking a running back that high. I'm not doing it unless I'm a team that, like let's say Kansas City, that kind of fell off and I'll be right back that next year. Then I might take them. But for the most part, if I'm, the Browns, I'm not taking a running back that high. But what I will say is, since we're talking about running backs, Mike Washington.
Yep.
6'1", 223, ran a 4.32 40. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we could stop right there, but we won't. But we could stop right there, because his
at 210
emotion,
pounds.
At 210 pounds. No, actually 223 pounds. Well, I guess from the combine weight, it was 223. I'm assuming. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right, you're right.
Right. So when he ran, it was like, whoa, like, wait a minute. Like, we thought you were going to come in at like maybe a 4-5 and say, okay, you'll be a 3rd or 4th round, but I don't know. And he could still be a 3rd or 4th rounder. I don't know. And, I don't know how I have to go back and look at his tape fully. I've only looked at a few games, but watching him in those games and watch him climb the pocket and follow the block, and it was like, oh, okay. Because I watched the combine. I said, okay, well, let me go back and take a look at his tape really quick. And then I went back and looked at his tape, and I said, wait a minute, he's following the blocking. Like, there's something here. I need to look into him more. But I mean, his stat line, I think his RAS was like a 10. I think it was out of this world, his RAS. So yeah. I think this is a guy that, for me, I would pass on Jeremiah Love, and I would take Mike Washington 2nd or 3rd round.
1.51 10-yard split. That's off the charts to go along with that fast 40. But that 10-yard, a lot of guys look at, because that's that initial burst, right? How quick are you getting out of the blocks? That is really fast. Anything below a 1.6 is outstanding. 39-inch vertical, awesome for a guy his size, and a 10.8 broad jump. And if you remember, Alex, we talked about this guy briefly, but he looked really good during Senior Bowl. And he was kind of getting on my radar during the Senior Bowl week. I was like, oh, this Mike Washington guy looks pretty good. And then he comes out and crushes the combine. This guy is having an outstanding draft process, right? This is what we always talk about, where, first you put together some good tape. This guy was running in the SEC, goes to Senior Bowl, competes, looks really good at the Senior Bowl, now goes to combine and opens eyes by testing even better than what we expected. I think he was probably a third-round pick who maybe just became a second.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so, man. A lot of guys I want to get to, Alex. Let's bounce around here a little bit. Look, we haven't had a lot of talk about the quarterbacks, and I think we got to talk about it a little bit. This isn't a great quarterback class, and that's part of the reason why we've kind of danced around it. I mean, let's be honest. It's not the best. But we got to mention Taylen Green, because this is a guy who's obviously a really big developmental prospect with a lot of tools. And we saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was kind of getting on the radar for some of the things that he can do athletically. Wow, did he put on a show, though? Man, 4.3, 640, 43.5-inch vert, 11.2 broad jump, combine record for quarterbacks. And this is a big guy with a big arm. Now, he's got a lot of developing to do to be able to play quarterback at the NFL level. I mean, the accuracy, decision-making, there's a lot of red flags with him as a quarterback. But athletically, man, he is something else. And here's my question, Alex, because I started really thinking about this. I can't help but think of guys like Joe Milton, guys another guy, Anthony Richardson, who got obviously way overdrafted, but guys who were just great athletes, right? Who thought that they could develop into quarterbacks at the next level, and it hasn't panned out. Now, Joe Milton still has some time, and to be fair, Anthony Richardson still has time too. But I think back to another guy, Alex, that really wasn't suited to play quarterback was Terrell Pryor, coming out of Ohio State. Great college quarterback, didn't have the tools to really be an NFL quarterback. But the problem is he was so hesitant when coaches tried to tell him, look, we want to switch you positions. We want to switch you to tight end. We want to switch you to wide receiver. They wanted to move him around because he's so athletic. And he was so hesitant. Once he finally stopped resisting the thought of changing positions, he actually turned into a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL.
Cleveland,
And so, but I can't help but think, how much better would Terrell Pryor's career had been if he would have just taken that advice earlier and started working towards being a wide receiver at the next level? And I can't help but think the same with this guy. I don't see a guy. He has so much developing to do to be able to be a quarterback at the next level. He's such a good athlete. He's so big, so fast. Why not just say, look, we're going to bring you in. We're going to move you to a different position. If you don't want to do it. And look, I get that, man, but this guy is going to if he's going to basically do the exact same thing, he's going to waste the first 3 or 4 years of his career trying to play quarterback, sitting on a bench somewhere, trying to develop, when in reality, he probably could be an instant impact player on the outside. Am I crazy?
So, okay, I think there's two answers to that. Looking at it from a realistic standpoint, no, you're not crazy. Now, looking at it from a business standpoint, yeah, you are crazy, because if I can hang on and even be a backup quarterback, I could get $5 million as a backup quarterback, as opposed to maybe $2 million as well, you showed me that this year. Show it to me again next year. Show it to me again next year, before you get to the 20, 30, whatever the wide receivers are at right now with their ridiculous number. And we could get into numbers because I think they're all ridiculous, but we'll save that for another pod. But I think so. I'll say that you're right. If we're not looking at money, I'm gonna say you're absolutely right. But from a business standpoint, it's like, no, you can go and you could get $5 million and sit on the bench behind Mahomes or Daniel Jones or whoever, and get $5 million a year and keep making $5 million a year for the next 10 to 15 years, and never start another game, or maybe start 10 games over the next 10 years and get $5 million where you could be a top wide receiver. Well, no, not a top wide receiver. You could be a wide receiver for maybe 4 years and get, maybe 2 to 5 million for the next 4 years. So I think that might, and what I'm saying is, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that might have been what the background noise might have been, or why he did not move at that point in time.
I want to move on anyway, but I will say this. I get your point and all that. I guess what it comes down to is how you're wired. Do you want to be a backup or do you want to be a football player? Because most guys want to be on the field. Now, I get you've been training to be a quarterback your whole life. You want to be a quarterback. I get it. I do. But if you're not good enough to play at the next level, I know for me personally, if a coach says, look, you could be a star receiver in this game with that size, that athletic profile, who's to say he can't be a 1,000-yard receiver for the next 5-7 years, as opposed to sitting on a bench somewhere hoping to get a chance at quarterback. So, he's a very, very interesting prospect because someone's going to draft him. We know that. It's just how do they view him? How do they view his development? How much patience do they have with him as a development guy to see, okay, can we bring him along, or do they say to him early on, let's try to move positions? Now, a couple of the quarterbacks I want to get to real quick because we saw a couple of these guys throw. Ty Simpson, Eric Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Carson Beck, some of these guys threw at the combine, which was great to see. Drew Aller, Eric Nussmeier were guys that we thought were going to be top 10 picks going into the college football season. And Penn State and LSU fell off a cliff. These guys, for multiple different reasons, actually Drew Aller got hurt. Garrett Nussmeier played through injuries.
Through injury. Yep.
And so I'm curious, what do you think of QB2? I know, like I said, it's not a great quarterback class, but how do you view QB2? Who is your QB2 in this class?
So I think analysts have QB2 as Ty Simpson, but I think they have it more because they've seen the less of him of everybody else, right? So last year was his first true year fully starting. Fully starting was his first year last year. So that was your first time seeing him. That was the first time he needed another year. But I understand the dynamic of coming out now as opposed to next year, and you may be pushed down. So I think that the analytics people that sit behind screens looked at that and said, "Oh yeah, Ty is going to be, he's going to be number 2. He's probably going to go in the first round," which he might be. I'm not saying about where he's going to be picked. I'm talking about how far is Ty Simpson away from Drew Aller, away from Garrett Nussmeier, away from Clay Klubnik, Carson Beck, or whoever you have as your next guy. If it's not Ty Simpson, how far away is he from Ty Simpson that it should be Ty Simpson, and then everybody else the way that they're being, I don't want to say performed, but the way that he's being built up right now is that it's Fernando Mendoza, then it's Ty Simpson, and then it's everybody else. So like, how far away is he from everybody else? I have actually Garrett Nussmeier, I have Drew Aller, I have them all kind of pushed together for the most part. I don't have anybody separate. I kind of, every week I go in and I look and I say, I think I like that guy more. I think I look at that guy more. So no, nobody separated themselves that much.
The one thing I would agree with completely is Ty Simpson being viewed as a first round pick, I think is a little crazy. Yeah. I don't see a first round pick.
Especially the Rams. Yeah, especially the Rams. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it. And if I'm the Rams, I get why people are connecting him to the Rams because you have Stafford who's aging. You're thinking, okay, can we get the next guy and groom him for a year or two behind Stafford? I get the idea of it. But if I'm the Rams, look, you're in the Super Bowl window. You want to add an impact player right now, not a guy who's going to hold a clipboard. Like, that's my thing. It's like, you can worry about the quarterback position later. You're trying to get another ring. So I don't understand that thinking, but I also just don't understand the player being that hyped. And look, it's not even that I think Ty Simpson's a bad player. It's just, he's got 15 starts. I mean, and 6 of them weren't very good. So, I mean, let's just be honest. He collapsed down the stretch. Like, he had a really good start to the year. If you remember, we were talking about it in the college football
season. Especially after that Georgia game. Yes, we were.
After Georgia game, I thought he looked great. His first, 8 games, he looked really, really good. I don't know if teams started to figure out him, if they started to figure out the offense. I don't know exactly what happened. I know there was a lack of a running game, which always hurts, but he faded down the stretch, man. And a guy with that little of starting experience, and quite frankly, let's face it too, I think he's a smart kid. I think he's got, good mechanics, not a decent arm, all those things. And I know he's a coach's son, so he's a smart guy, processes well, but what's special about him? Is there anything special about Ty Simpson that's, you know what I mean? Like, what's his superpower? What's the one thing that you're like, man, this really separates him? I just don't see it.
Yeah. And you talked about his starts. I think it's actually 20 starts that he has, but you talked about him fully starting this year, and then after the 8th start, you say, okay, it looks like they've caught up to him, and he can't read the rest of the playbook. So now what do? You know what that sounds like to me? Anthony Richardson. It's exactly what I said. Paying attention to him, watching him the first 7 games, and then watching the last 4 or 5 games, or however many it was, and saying they could not expand the playbook anymore because he got overwhelmed and it was too much. Now, the difference is there's a different dynamic between Anthony Richardson and Ty Simpson to why he went 5, and I think he went 5. And go ahead, say it again.
Well, I was going to say, to the point I was making earlier about Ty Simpson, at least Anthony Richardson had a superpower, his athleticism. Right,
hip athleticism, yeah.
Right, at least you could look at him and say, okay, he's a development guy, but he's a big athletic guy, huge arm, he can run, whatever he ran, 4.4, whatever.
4.4,
at least he had other tools in the toolbox.
Right, there's nothing special about it. Yeah, there's nothing
I don't see anything special. If Ty Simpson had a cannon or ran a 4.4, then maybe I could look at it and be like, okay, there's some development here. He just, I don't know, he screams NFL backup. He just does. He screams backup. Now, the one guy I want to point out, though, I don't really love this group. Drew Aller is, he's a guy that should have developed, but you're a 3-year starter and you don't look any better than you did the first time I saw you at Penn State. Quick shout out to our friends at props.cash, the best player prop research tool in the game. Props.cash lets you scan thousands of props across sports books to quickly spot the highest value opportunities. You get real-time injury and lineup intel, advanced filters to find exactly what you're looking for, and even correlated player props so you can see what tends to hit when a player goes over their line. They cover NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college football, college basketball, and the WNBA. It's legit next level prep. If you're serious about betting smarter, go to props.cash and use code PGF25 for 25% off your first month. That's code PGF25 for 25% off your first month at props.cash. The official ticketing app of Pint Glass Football is now SeatGeek. I can't recommend them enough, guys. I've been using SeatGeek for years. You want to go to a game this season? SeatGeek is here to take the confusion out of buying tickets, making sure you get the best seats at the best prices. With SeatGeek, you'll never have to worry about overpaying for tickets again. How? They put a 0 to 10 score on each ticket, so you know you're getting a good deal. But here's the real game changer. You can get $20 off your first ticket purchase with the code PGFPOD. That's right, $20 off with code PGFPOD. This season, make every game day epic with SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app and remember to enter the code PGFPOD to grab your $20 discount. The guy just did not improve as a player. Now, he has some tools. He's got a big arm. He's got size. He's got some athletic ability. He's got some tools, but I just see way too many red flags with him. Carson Beck, I don't even want to go there. Garrett Nussmeier, though, is the one guy. He's the one guy that I am circling in this class that I think should be QB2. I think he's being undervalued. I think he's a better prospect than Ty Simpson. He's a really good processor. He's a smart kid. He has way more big game experience. I think he's a guy that played through a lot of injuries last year on an LSU team that was spiraling out of control around him. And I think it brought his game down. If you look at his tape the year prior, there's a lot to like. And we saw Nussmeier at the Senior Bowl look really good. I thought he looked pretty good at the combine. Look, Nussmeier's a guy to watch here. I think he could be a solid kind of sneaky sleeper quarterback in this class.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Nussmeier is with everything falling apart at LSU, him playing hurt, the noise around him has been very quiet. He went to the Senior Bowl. He had his Senior Bowl, and now he's doing everything to build himself back up the best that he can. I'm not sure where his injury is now compared to where it was during the season, but he's building himself back up. We'll find out more at LSU's Pro Day, but he's building himself back up. and then we'll start to see. I think he's going to be the number 2. And I think Ty Simpson might end up being 3 or 4 at the end of the day.
Let's shift gears here. I want to talk about some wide receivers here. Your guy, Alex, you said circle this name, Brennan Thompson, fastest player at the combine, 4.26. Wow. Man, we knew he was going to be fast. I mentioned on the pod, I said he might be the fastest guy in this combine. This is a guy who led the SEC with big-time catches, 30-plus yard catches, 50-plus yard catches. This is a guy who can stretch the field. He can take the top off of a defense, big-time game-breaking speed. Here's my buyer beware, though. Go pull up the list of fastest wide receivers at the combine the last 20 years and go look at the names. It's a long list. It is a long list of guys that didn't pan out. So that is one thing that worries me about him, but I understand the excitement around him. A guy that I thought really boosted his stock. How about Omar Cooper out of Indiana? Runs a 4.4. Look, doesn't blow the doors off anybody, but I think a lot of people were thinking he was more of a 4.5 guy. Mm-hmm. He comes in, runs a 4.4, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, okay. That was a nice surprise because his tape is fantastic. And now that you know that he's got some really good speed, not elite speed, but really good speed, I think that boosts his stock up. I think there's some people that I've been hearing, they're saying, look, don't be surprised if he sneaks into the back half of the first round. That might be a little rich, but I won't be totally shocked. I mean, he's a really solid pro-ready guy.
Yeah, and I like Omar Cooper. Really quick on Brennan Thompson. He could be another Tavon Austin. I'll just say that, and I'll leave that there. But Omar Cooper, I watched, obviously I've been paying a lot of attention to Fernando Mendoza, and he called Omar Cooper. He really said that he's Deebo Samuel. Now, we know Deebo Samuel's had a lot of injury, but I understand what he was saying because Omar Cooper really worked primarily a lot. I don't want to say he played outside as well, but he worked primarily more in the slot and got a lot easy. 6 feet, 199 pounds, ran a 4.4, 240, as you say, had a 1.5 10-yard match, but he gets the ball and turns into a running back. Yeah. That's what healthy Deebo Samuel does. He gets the ball and turns into a running back. And that's what that is what you want from those, your guy that's going to catch a 7-yard slant. You want him to turn into a running back and then get the next 10. I like Omar Cooper. I think he's going to be a 10-year player. I think he gets a couple of maybe 2 Pro Bowls. I'm not sure about the All Pros. I think he gets 2 or 3 Pro Bowls, but he's a solid guy. He's a solid Hines Ward. He's a solid Deebo Samuel minus the injuries. He's a solid guy. I think he'll get maybe 3,000-yard seasons and maybe have a couple of where they're going to put him in the running back role as well, because now we see a lot more coordinators using their wide receivers as running backs. So he'll get 1,000 yards in total, but he's going to be a guy that's going to put up a lot of stats.
The yards after the catch is really what I think he's alluding to, because Deebo was so in his prime, was so good yards after the catch, turns a 5-yard slant and can run a guy over or just run by a guy with his athletic ability. Omar Cooper is so good in open space. He's so good once he gets the football in his hands. Just a tough guy to tackle. I think he'd be a great fit for the 49ers. I think he's a perfect fit for that yak kind of guy, would fit in that offense. Don't be shocked if the Raiders take him in the second round.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk of that. Yeah, there's been
that. I think that would make a lot of sense. You've got this young quarterback. Go get him as number 1 guy to ease that transition. I think would be really smart if he's there. Now, like I said, he put on a pretty good combine, so he might not be available when the Raiders pick next, but something to think about. How about Zachariah Branch? We talked about this guy. We talked about this is a guy to watch because we knew he was going to put on a show. 4.3 40-yard dash. I think he's a poor man's Tyreek Hill. I don't think he's not quite as fast. He's not quite as sturdy, but very similar build, elite speed, elite shifty, quickness in and out of routes. I think, and we talked about this, I think he's more than a gadget guy. I think the Georgia tape actually kind of hurt his evaluation because Georgia did not utilize him. Go back and watch his USC tape. His USC tape is way more impressive. So he's a guy that I think really helped himself. If not a first round, he's definitely going to be a second round pick, I'd imagine. I can't see him falling past that. Chris,
let me give you a quick player, and this is my last wide receiver, Jeff Caldwell. Now, I think I don't know how to describe him. He's 6'5", 6'4". I think he's 6'4.5", 6'5", 216. Ran a 4.32, 240 out of Cincinnati. I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to be probably around perhaps maybe a late third, maybe early fourth round wide receiver pick. He's going to play on the outside. Let's just get that straight. He's going to be on the outside. He's only going to run one route. It's going to be up the field really fast. This is going to be what's the guy from Kenny Galladay, for the Lions. He's going to run one route. That's going to be his route. He may have a post, he may have a lean route, but he's going to have one route. What's my guy? Matthew Scott Vantling from the Chiefs that year, where he ran one route. He ran the one route and they threw the one route every now and then. MVS, yes. Marquise Scantling, I think his name is. Right.
Yeah.
He's gonna be that type of guy. But with that speed, and if you are a team that just needs a guy to open up everything underneath, you do a lot of work under there, this is a guy that you can draft that's going to take the top off of your defense.
Yeah, speaking of take the top off, Chris Brazzell, Tennessee wide receiver, ran a 4.37. He's a big guy, big speed. Look, I say this every draft season. Scout the player, not the helmet. I can't remove that orange Tennessee logo off the helmet. I just can't do it because, look, I don't trust Tennessee receivers in the NFL. I'm sorry. These guys come out of that system. It doesn't work. I don't know why it doesn't work. I know they run a very college-style offense. Maybe that's what it is, a limited route tree. They don't come in as very developed. They're like the opposite of Ohio State. Like Ohio State is like a factory that just produces guys that are ready for the league. Tennessee just gets really good athletes and teases us and makes us think they're going to be really good receivers in the NFL. So I don't know what to make of it. It's a great time. There's a lot of people that like him. I know McShay loves this guy. There's some analysts that love this guy. I just don't see it, Alex.
Yeah, and I went back to look at Peerless Price. I went to go back to look to see what his career looked like because he was the first name that popped into my head. And I see, looking at him, he only has 1,000 yard season in his whole entire career. So I'm not sure about Tennessee wide receivers there either. Yeah. I had to go back and take a look.
I was like, you really went back. You went in the NFLhistory.com, or NFLDraftHistory.com for that one.
Yeah.
Let's see. So a couple USC guys, Jacoby Lane, because everyone's talking about Mekhi Lemon, rightfully so. A guy that I love. I thought Mekhi Lemon had some moments. I thought Jacoby Lane looked good though.
Yeah. He did.
I thought Jacoby, and here's the thing, if you remember going into the season, I always try to remember where we were going into the college football season. When we were talking about USC, Jacoby Lane was supposed to be the guy. Remember? If you remember, Jacoby Lane was the guy that everyone was talking about going into the year, that he's going to be the number one. And Mekhi Lemon was the guy that emerged as the guy. And so it was nice to see Jacoby Lane have a nice performance, though, because I think he still carves out a role in the NFL. Let's get to some guys who stole the show. Last week, we were talking about guys that going into the combine were guys to circle that we thought could be risers, guys that could put on a show at the combine. The first name that came out of my mouth was Kenyon Sadiq. And I told you guys, this guy is going to put on a show. Man, he did not disappoint, Alex. My goodness. Look, I don't think he gets out of the top 10. I don't think he gets past Kansas City at 9.
Okay.
This guy put up, forget good numbers, this guy put up freakish numbers. And here's the other thing. I mentioned this just a minute ago, Alex. Kenyon Sadiq going into the combine was tight end 1 by a mile, similar to Jeremiah Love in the running back room, right? We knew he was RB1. We knew he was tight end 1. There was no debating it. Kenyon Sadiq did not need to go test, just like Jeremiah Love. He didn't need to go test. He could have sat it out and just said, go watch the tape. I'm the guy. But instead, he went out and competed and went out and did the 40, the vertical, the broad jump, all that stuff, and put on a show. And not only did he back up that he's tight end 1, he backed up that, look, I'm not only tight end 1, I'm one of the best tight end prospects you guys have seen in a long time. Man, 4.39, Alex, in the 4. This guy ran as fast as Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago. We're talking about one of the most electric backs in the league. This guy just ran a 4. That's elite corner speed. We're talking about a 240-plus pound tight end that just ran a 4.39, Alex. Not to mention the 40, 3.5-inch vert, 11 broad. Unbelievable. And I said it all year watching this guy. Oregon did not utilize him enough, and he still led the nation for touchdowns by a tight end.
So you have that tight end. I'll give you another tight end that I looked at, Eli Stowers.
Yep.
Out of Vanderbilt. Now, they had a good year. So Eli Stowers, 6'4", 239, ran a 4.51 40, 10 yard split. This is a guy I think who's going to come on late, and I think he's going to be perhaps a second or third or early third round pick for the most part. But this is a guy, it's going to take him a year because he's got to get caught up. He's going to have to balance out his speed and power and break that off. But I think in his second year, he's going to have a breakout year. You won't see it in the first year. You'll see flashes in the first year, but you won't see the full potential of what he can do until the second year. And I thought Eli Stowers had a great combine.
Unbelievable combine. I mean, honestly, the only thing it got overshadowed with was Sadiq just putting on a show. But in reality, Stowers put on almost as good of a showing. His vertical was unreal. 45.5, 11.3 broad jump. Now, I know there's always people listening and people that are like, what does it matter? All this testing stuff. Look, it does matter because if you go and look at the history of guys in their testing marks, if you go look at measurements historically, you'll start to see trends. You'll start to see guys in the elite group, guys who become big-time players on Sunday, fall into certain testing groups. And guys that don't, they're usually outliers. And they're outliers for a reason. There's only a few of them. When the rest of the group all put up numbers like this. This guy put up big numbers for a reason. He's a big-time athlete. I think Eli Stowers was already tight end too for me going into this. And this is, by the way, is a really deep tight end class. But Stowers, I think, not only was tight end 2 for me going in, I think he solidified his spot as tight end 2 in this class, especially with the athletic upside. I wouldn't be shocked if he's gone in round 2 at all. I mean, look, he's an F tight end, and I think in a lot of ways Sadiq is too. Now, I think Sadiq's clearly a better blocker. Stowers, that he's not really going to give you much as far as he can be an F tight end, a big slot right out of the gate, who's going to be a mismatch nightmare. Because of his size, because of his athleticism, he is going to be a problem to match up with. I was really impressed, man. One guy that I think maybe isn't getting mentioned enough is Max Clare out of Ohio State. There's a lot of people that think he could be in the mix for tight end 2, tight end 3. He's more of a traditional inline, big physical tight end. I thought he looked really good at the combine. I think he helped himself, showed some nice mobility. So I talked about guys that put on a show, and I want to get to the offensive lineman. I want to get to all of it, Alex, because, look, the combine was incredible. How about the guys out of Ohio State? Now, I know you're not that high on Arvell Reese, but I've got to ask, after watching what he did there, are you going back and watching some tape now? Because you didn't think the attributes were there, I think was how you worded it. You didn't see the attributes the same way. Are you rethinking that after seeing the show he put on?
So let me rephrase it. I think the attributes are there. I think it's only 1 year of fully starting attributes that we're seeing, and I need to see more. This isn't Abdul Carter, who had a full array of attributes at middle linebacker. Then he went to outside. That's different. This guy didn't start for 2 years. He didn't start. He started his third year, and then we got what we got. Whereas David Bailey is a little bit more of a resume there. That's why I have him over there. Now, is he a physical freak? Absolutely. Now the combine proved that. And then also I believe he's 6'4". I think he's 6'4". 6'4". And then obviously Sonny Styles. Now Sonny Styles, to me, I knew about Sonny Styles, but because I was paying attention more to Arvell Reese because he was the potential number 2 pick, I was looking at him more. And then I saw Sonny Styles and I said, well, wait a minute. And then they spoke to his mother. And here's the little intricacies that you don't get when you watch the combine, you don't get people's parents or anything like that. You basically just get the player and then you move on to that. But this player, because he was a former NFL, he was Lorenzo Styles' son. We got to hear from his mother and hear how he grew up, what the father put into those two sons to get them to the point that they got to, and everything, and how everything culminated to where both of these guys are as well, because his brother ran I believe it was the fastest safety, ran a 4.27, I think 4.26, 4.27 safety as well. So looking at all that brought together, and then hearing why his name was Sonny. Well, no. We didn't call him Sonny because that was his grandfather's name. We called him Sonny because that was the guy in The Godfather, because he didn't take any crap. And he's like, oh, okay. So now I know I can take what I have in the attributes, and I could put it together with the mental, and now I could put that on the field. I saw a guy that was probably a top 12 to 15 guy. He possibly has moved himself up into a top 8 guy, yes, by what we saw in this, and just giving his position as middle linebacker. We're talking about Roquan Smith, Fred Warner type, and I know those guys weren't picked that high, but I'm just saying his mother speaking, that kind of sold me more on what I saw in the actual combine workout.
So here, you're absolutely right. And I was high on Sonny Styles coming into this draft. I thought he was one of the best players in this draft. I actually thought, and this is strictly based on the tape. This isn't even, I'll get to the combine numbers in a second, but just the tape, I think he has the highest floor of any player in this draft, regardless of, that's how good his tape is. His tape is unbelievable. The guy is so good. He's so clean. He's so NFL ready. But then when he impressed like this, which I knew he was going to put on a show as far as numbers, I knew he was a very athletic guy. I didn't know he was this athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, these numbers are crazy. And you're right. 6'4", 244 pounds, 4'4", 640, 43.5-inch vertical, 11.2 broad, a 1.56 10-yard split. You're talking about an elite combo of size, speed, athletic ability. You're talking about a rare combo. So you are right. This is a guy, I think in my mock draft, I had him going maybe 12. No, forget that. Sorry, Dallas. He's not going to be there at 12. There is no way he falls that far, because what he did, his tape was already elite. But now we find out that he's a true blue chip elite athlete on top of it. He's not falling past Washington at 7. There's no way. If he's there for Washington, they are running to the podium to put in that card. So, yeah, unbelievable. The 2 Ohio State guys were unreal. I mean, those guys were unreal, man. And like I said, Sonny Styles is the more proven commodity, to your point. And I think Arvell Reese is the guy who's viewed as this Micah Parsons-esque prototype hybrid player. I think both are going to be outstanding. I mean, I think both these guys are going to be really, really good players at the next level. Now, I thought there was a couple more linebackers I want to get to, though, that really helped themselves in this draft. How about Anthony Hill out of Texas? Did we forget about Anthony Hill? Because I know we talked about him a little bit during the college football season. He was a name that everybody was talking about going into the year. We knew he was a good player. I think he kind of reminded everybody, but yeah, don't forget about me, guys. 4.5 40, 37-inch vert, 10.5 broad jump. This is a big physical. Another guy showed elite testing, and he's got really good tape coming out of Texas.
Yeah, no, I thought Anthony Hill was good. I thought Jacob Rodriguez, he was a guy that I had to, because his size is a safety size for the most part. But then when you looked, when you watched him, when you looked at him, you said, okay, maybe he can fit out there. Now, I don't know where he would go, because I think his size is going to have a lot to say about what he can do. But for what he did at linebacker, and for what he did during the season, and then what we saw in the combine, he looks like he can hold his own. But in reality, I don't know what he is, and I think that's going to hurt him.
I'll tell you what I think he is. This is how I see him. I think he's a 4.3 will. And he is a guy that we talked about. He was one of those names we talked about last week. Players to watch at the combine, because he checked 2 boxes out of the 3 big boxes, right? His tape in college was elite. The best defensive player in college football this year, hands down. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl and shows out. And it kind of makes everybody go, okay, maybe this guy is more than a mid-round pick, right? Because he looked really good at the Senior Bowl. But the big question mark was, will he test and show that he has the kind of athleticism to be a true starting, high-level starter in the NFL? He checked that box. He tested really well. at the combine. He looked really good at the combine. And I think he showed that he has, like you said, maybe a little undersized to play middle linebacker, but I think as a will in a 4-3, I think he's the perfect fit. Now you're checking all the boxes for Rodriguez, right? You got the tape, you got the Senior Bowl, now you got the combine, check. I think he's a guy that went from probably a third, fourth round pick that he's going to be in the conversation for a second round pick. I was actually looking today, Alex, PFF now has him mocked in the first round.
Wow.
Which might be a little rich, might be a little rich, but that's what kind of rise we saw at the combine, because I think that was the final check mark for him.
I look at him similar, and I kind of just relay this in the sense of Patrick Queen is only 6 feet 229. I think Will Rodriguez is 6'1", 230. I think he's 230. Yeah. I think he's 230. Right. So, and then he ran the speed, and I think the speed was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thing that kind of helped him out. I said, okay, he's got the speed. I just don't. Now we just have to see if he can play out there. Now, if he can do that, then I can see somebody. Patrick Queen's not an elite player, but he's a solid middle linebacker in a sense where he can start. And he could be an 8 to 10 year starter on a bunch of different teams. And I think that's what Jacob Rodriguez can be.
A guy who popped up on the radar for us at the Senior Bowl, probably was the most standout player at the Senior Bowl, Kyle Lewis. We talked about him out of Pitt.
Yeah.
Linebacker, some were kind of viewing as more of a safety. I think he had 3 interceptions at the Senior Bowl. He was lights out, man. He was so good. 5'11", 220. So a lot of people are kind of looking, okay, maybe he's a little bit of a tweener, but I think in today's NFL, there's more of a role for that than there used to be. And what I mean by that is I think we're going to see him be kind of that star position, a big nickel, kind of a slot safety type guy. I think he carves out a role for that at the next level with his ability to not only play the run, play the pass, and just how versatile we've seen. I thought he had a nice showing at the combine. Only a couple guys I want to mention real quick. You mentioned David Bailey. I didn't really get to mention him. I thought he had a really nice showing. I think he got a little overshadowed by the Ohio State guys. His name kind of got lost in the shuffle, but 4.5 40, very good. 35-inch vert, very good. 10.9 broad. You know, I thought he moved really well at the combine. I don't think he did anything except solidify what we already know. Which look, he's a top 5 pick, and I think he solidified it. So we had a nice day. Alkai Lawrence, I thought is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere, a bit of a sleeper in this class. 6'4", 253, 4'5", 240. Are you kidding me? 40-inch vert, 10-10 broad jump, 20 career sacks. Like, he's got production, the size, the speed. Like, he opened some eyes at the combine. I think he's a guy that maybe went from a day 3 to a day 2 type of pick with that combine performance. I want to get your thoughts on this because this is one of the biggest names at the combine. We knew this was going to happen. It didn't surprise anybody. We knew this was going to be a story. Ruben Bain with the T-Rex arms. What do you think here? I mean, I think everyone was hoping and praying that he'd have at least 31, 32. Sub 31-inch arms. Yikes. I mean, I know, look, the tape is elite. We know he's a heck of a football player, but once again, historically, go look at the list of edge rushers in the NFL with under 31-inch arms. It's a lot of names that you don't want to be associated with. How much does it hurt his stock?
Okay, so I say, wait a minute. You're asking me about Ruben Bain. He's going to go in the second round. I don't believe he's going to be a first-round pick. He's going to go in the second round. It's not a shot against him. It's a shot at the analytics and what everybody's looking at. I believe he's going to be a second-round pick. Sorry.
Alex, the big guys. You've been wanting to talk about the big guys. Before we get out of here, let me know your thoughts. What did you see with this offensive line group? Because there's one name that I think, well, I'll get to in a minute, but you tell me your thoughts, and I'll give you kind of my biggest takeaway. I
saw a bunch of guards. That's my takeaway. I saw a bunch of guards.
I did too. You know what? We were on the same page here because as good as Francis Mauigoa is, I don't think he looks like a tackle. Spencer Fano, I think, could possibly play tackle. He's the one guy that I think he has a legit chance to be a tackle, but it wouldn't shock me if he ends up being a guard. And I think because of that, those two guys that during this whole pre-draft process, those have been offensive tackle 1, offensive tackle 2, depending on who you ask, flip them back and forth, whatever. Offensive tackle 1 in this group is now Monroe Freeling.
Yeah.
Monroe Freeland, and I called this, 2 weeks ago, Alex? I said, don't be shocked after the combine, if Monroe Freeland becomes offensive tackle 1, and now look at all these mocks that are coming out. Look who's the first tackle off the board. Look who's in the top 10 after the combine. You hit it on the head, because Monroe Freeland, all of a sudden you look around and he seems to be the only guy that looks like a legit franchise left tackle. Now, is he a perfect prospect? No. Does he have developing still to do? Yes. But he's the only guy that has the size, the physical tools, the length, the feet, athleticism, that you could see it and you could go, okay, you know what? That guy could be a 10-year starter and develop into a Pro Bowl / all-pro level guy. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
It's exactly what I saw. I saw a lot of, and these guys were good. They just weren't tackles. And that was the problem. These guys were good. They just weren't tackles. When I looked at them, I said, it's Peter Skoronski. Again, that's what I saw.
Yeah. And gosh, who was that podcast that called that said he was going to be a guard, not a tackle? Oh, that's right. It was PGF. That's right, guys. We called it before anybody else did, long before the Titans took him in the top 10. And we said, what are you doing taking a guard the top 10? Guys, that is going to do it for today's episode. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.